If I were to start this video by telling you I think the Indiana Pacers are one of the most interesting teams in the NBA, what would you think? It's a safe place. You can say what you think. What would you think of that sentiment, that statement? You calling me a liar? You think I'm lying by saying the Indiana Pacers are one of the most interesting teams in the NBA? Well, you're most likely a Pacers fan, so you probably don't think that. But if you're not, you might be thinking that. First off, I would never lie. That doesn't happen. But more to the point, I genuinely think this team is incredibly interesting for a number of different reasons. You look at the Bucks, you look at the Lakers, you look at all of those really good teams. I'm not trying to pair the Pacers with those teams, although they do have a lot of talent, but they're not there yet, obviously. But you look at those teams and it's like, we know what they're going to do. They've got Giannis, they've got Middleton, they've got LeBron, they've got AD. I know, great stuff to have. And then you surround those guys with shooters and role players. It's kind of boring, but that's the reality. When you look at the Pacers, they just have so many people that they're trying to maximize in the starting lineup that I just find it incredibly interesting because they have 5 guys. Let's go at the starting lineup. You have Karis LeVert, who over the last 15 games of the season, and trust me, I'll get more in depth in this, 25-7. Yeah. In case you didn't know, 25 points a game, 7 assists on pretty good efficiency. He was legitimately great second half of the season. We've always known if he gets healthy, if he stays healthy, right situation, all-star talent without question. There's no question about that. And then his backcourt partner, Malcolm Brogdon, just casually put up 21 and 6 as well. He was in the fringe all-star contention as well this year, and he's a fringe all-star kind of guy. Someone who's a steady ball handler, good defender. We'll get into that later. TJ Warren, he's no bubble Warren anymore. He's not dropping 50 on Ben Simmons' head top, although he might do that again this season. He might do it. Who knows? Ben Simmons might just be out there as a complete shell next season. I hope not, but yeah, we're not getting into Ben Simmons. All I'm saying is TJ Warren, he's not in the bubble anymore, but if he gets back healthy, still 20 points a game, still has star flashes as an offensive player. Brogdon and LeVert could genuinely be all-star level players. Warren has star flashes, and then you have the front court. Sabonis has been an all-star, and then Miles Turner is a star on the defensive end of the floor. I don't think it would be a stretch if I were to say all 4 of those guys go to a different team where they're the number 1 guy, and they could all be all-stars. TJ Warren aside, as I said, maybe Miles Turner, because they don't really value defense like that, and he is just inconsistent offensively. Again, we're going to talk about this, so before I even do that, if you could drop a like in the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, that would be much appreciated. I make content like this every single day, and doing so helps out a ton. But let's just drift away from this talent briefly, because we need to talk about the new coaching hire. They went from a bald head coach in Nate McMillan to a bald head coach in Nate Bjorkgren to now a bald former head coach who is now a head coach again with the Indiana Pacers in Rick Carlisle. The cycle of coaching is truly in this works in Indiana, and they seem to get a pretty good coach in. And straight away, Carlisle, in his first interview that I saw, he talked about how he wants to improve this defense, how they want to improve the defense. And that makes perfect sense because you look at what they did in the years prior to this year. They were the 6th and 3rd best defense. This year, they were the 14th. And of course, they had injuries. Of course, they had players missing. They had guys who got traded. There were a lot of things that went wrong. Bjorkgren went wrong. A lot of things went wrong. And that led to their defense being absolutely average. Bang average, as opposed to pretty much elite the last 2 years, which is a big drop-off. And I think Carlisle recognizes if they want to be the team that they can be, defense is where it starts. And if we're talking about defense, we may as well talk about the best defender, the most valuable defender on their team, Miles Turner. Why did I pause for that long? I don't know. I kind of lost track halfway through it. But Miles Turner, most valuable defender on this team. And he's someone who I think they need to keep. I know his offense is frustrating. It's inconsistent. I know he is inconsistent just in general. He's had injuries. He's had a lot of issues. But if you're just talking about defense in the NBA, if we've learned one thing over these playoffs this year, the year before, the last few years, you need a rim protector, you need an anchor, and you need that anchor to be able to move in space and at least get out to the perimeter to contest shots. Turner can do that. He can do that. He can switch onto different positions. I mean, he's not going to be out there guarding like 1 through 5, but if he switches out there and goes to try to contest a shot, he's not going to look like he's on stilts. So he's going to look decent out there, and I think you just need someone like that. You've already got someone like that, so why try to trade him away? I know you're going to have to come to terms with the fact that He's just a bit of a frustrating player offensively, and he's never going to live up to that potential on the offensive end of the floor. But we also have to appreciate what he does defensively, and you saw it with the stats, the on-off ratings, which, I mean, are always pretty good for starting centers. If you're a good center, if you're a good defensive center, your on-off statistics are going to be good. But Miles Turner, when he's on the floor, the Pacers are a top 10 defense. When he's off the floor, they're a bottom 3 defense. It's that simple. They need him on the floor to be a good defense, and when he's off the floor, they're pretty bad. And speaking of pretty bad defense, unfortunately, his frontcourt teammate, Domantas Sabonis, as good as he is offensively, he's not a good defender. He just simply isn't. He was getting blown by against Washington in a couple of those games towards the end of the season. He struggles defensively, and some of those struggles could really come to the fray in a playoff setting. He provides a ton offensively. I would never doubt that. I don't question that. But defensively, he has his issues, and that front court, because although Turner is switchable, he can move on to different positions. That's a front court that does have some issues with the foot speed, and in a playoff setting, you could really see that struggling. So that's where Sabonis, is he someone who gets packed up? Do they say sayonara to Sabonis and pack him up to a different team? I know, you're getting the pitchforks ready. No, Sabonis could never get traded. Sabonis is our all-star, he's our best player, he's our best offensive player, all of these things. I understand that, but sometimes talent isn't the be-all and end-all, and sometimes you have to prioritize fit. You have to look ahead to the playoffs. Rick Carlisle has said it before when he was talking about Porzingis, who is by no means the same post player as Sabonis, but he has said he's not really a big fan of post-ups. He's back to the basket play. I don't think is really his thing. He likes everyone to stretch out the floor and then have a primary creator, a couple of creators. That's what he's got in a backcourt. And then he could theoretically have Turner and another guy next to him stretching the floor. And that's the kind of offense Rick has shown in Dallas he likes to operate, and it was very successful. Albeit they did have Luka Doncic, but it was successful. And then Sabonis, do you get rid of him? I know, like I said, the pitchforks might be ready, but let's just hear me out. Do you trade him for someone who might be a better fit alongside Miles Turner, who might be better defensively? Right now, his trade value is great because he's coming off a great season. He's a great player. He's a great offensive player. I just don't know if he's the guy for this team, because I look at this team and I know they have had their troubles with scoring, but I think going forward, those troubles should be rectified when you bring in someone like Carlisle, who had a great offense for the last couple of years in Dallas, and you have LeVert, who looks like an offensive star the second half of the season. Malcolm Brogdon's always going to be steady. TJ Warren's always going to be able to score. Miles Turner is always still going to be able to shoot the ball at a decent clip and provide some kind of offense. And then whoever else you fill in that void with, depending on the trade, I think you have enough offense there, and then all of a sudden you could really bring back that defensive identity, which is something Carlisle wants to do. Again, just an idea. Just an idea. The reality is, most likely they keep Sabonis, they try to make it work. This is a new head coach. Rick Carlisle probably has his own plans for this team, and he's probably thinking, look, let's try to make it work. These are a lot of talented players that we need to fit into the same situation, but we can do it. And Sabonis is a guy that I think you could trade, but by no means am I saying you have to trade him. I'm just saying that's an idea to try and stir it up and try to take you to the next level. It's different, but that's an idea. But we just got to move away from trades, because we can talk about that if it actually happens. Let's just talk about Caris LeVert. It's going to be done. Let's talk about Caris LeVert. 25, 5 and 6.5 assists a game, second half of the season on really good efficiency. Last 15 games of the season, should I say good efficiency? He did everything. He can get to the line. When his three-point shot is falling, he's unstoppable. It's that simple, because he can hit you with those mid-range shots. He can handle the ball. He can create. He can run the pick and roll. He can do everything offensively. There's a reason he's always been so talented. The Pacers got a steal. Pacers got an absolute steal. Victor Oladipo, Caris LeVert. You take that 10 times out of 10, and then another one for good measure, because that is a steal and a half. And LeVert is still contracted for another year or two, I believe. I'm not exactly sure, but he still has a contract left with him. And if he can continue on the form that he had in the second half of the season, last 15 games, should I say, this is a lot to work with. This is a guy who you're going to partner up with Malcolm Brogdon. I love this partnership. You have LeVert, who's really got that dynamism. He's someone who can create. He's just a dynamic kind of offensive player. And Brogdon, we're not going to call him boring, but he's a steady-minded guy who makes the right decisions. He runs a lot of pick and rolls. He's a 3-level scorer. He's a good defender. You can trust on him to make the right decisions. Both of these guys have spent time playing off the ball. Both of these guys have spent time as the primary and as the secondary, the third, the fourth option on teams. So neither of these guys have issues with playing different roles, which is absolutely key when you have this much talent and this much offense on one team. So that's why I really like this backcourt. I just think it's hard to envision a situation where this backcourt isn't really damn good. And then talking about the other guy in the starting lineup, TJ Warren, is there too much to say about TJ? I mean, no offense to TJ, but I think you kind of know what you're getting with him. You're going to get someone who's going to give you 15 to 20 points a game. He can go off every now and then. Hopefully his three-point shooting is going to be as good as it was a couple of years ago. Hopefully he's going to drop 50 every now and again like he did in the bubble. There's a lot of things you can hope for, but in general, you're going to get a steady dose of TJ Warren. He's a solid defender. He's a solid offensive player. There's really not too many question marks over him. And then just in terms of free agency, there's two key guys. You have TJ, you have Doug. They're both out of contract. I think Doug might be priced out of their range because he's probably going to be looking in the 40s over a 4-year deal or something like that. Maybe the 50s. Shooters get paid. Shooters get paid. I mean, some of them have kind of been paid a little bit too much, which might scare a few teams off. Davis Bertans ring a bell. I know Doug McDermott probably has a little bit more in his locker, and he's a better defender, a number of things, but that is scary for teams. They've seen that. Davis Bertans get paid $16 million a year, Luke Kennard, all of these guys, and they just haven't delivered. Joe Harris in a playoff setting really struggled, which might lower his value just through that alone, but in general, he's getting paid at least $10 million a year because he provides shooting, he can get to the rim, he's a good player that they'd like to keep, but I think the more realistic option to keep is TJ McConnell, who is an absolute pest. There's no two ways about it. This guy is a thief. He'll come for your ball, he'll take it, and he'll run with it. I don't know what I'm saying, but he's like that year 11 guy who's playing with the year 7s, takes the ball, and just runs away with it. What am I even saying? I don't know, but TJ McConnell is that guy who's going to get in the passing lanes. There's just a lot of things you get from TJ McConnell that you just want to keep him around. You then have guys like Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, and a few other guys under contract that are solid role players. They're going to come off the bench. They're going to give a spark. Maybe you get rid of an Aaron Holiday if you bring back a TJ McConnell because he's just going to be taking a lot of his minutes away. There's options you can do there with free agency and in terms of a couple of trade deals. In the draft, maybe they just go straight for straight swap, bring in Corey Kispert as someone who can kind of fill that Doug McDermott role. Maybe that's something they do. They probably look to bring in a wing coming off the bench, I would say. I don't really know what they're going to do in the draft. Sorry, I haven't looked a ton into that, but in general, I have faith the Pacers will make a pretty solid decision there like they generally tend to do. There's potential all around the floor for this Pacers team to get back to where they were the last few years prior to this, and that is a good team in the Eastern Conference. Hopefully maybe take it to the next level if Karis LeVert can lead them that way, because I think he is the guy that is the catalyst for the potential rise in the Pacers stock this season. Anyways, that's all I think about the Pacers. Have a good day. Bye.